Here I am, back again. Tell a friend. Chad Wesley Smith here. Beers with Chad, or tonight, wine with Chad. Juggernaut, Hillside Cabernet. No affiliation, but once I saw that there was a Juggernaut wine, it definitely became my favorite one to buy. So cheers to you fine folks. So starting off, I want to talk about Farmers Open. Headed down there, Marissa and I did on Saturday. Ended up being almost an hour and 40-minute drive to the south, to Torrey Pines south, specifically to see Mr. Jake Knapp play. So the goal was to catch him at the turn and see 10 through 18 for him on the final day on Saturday, because they bumped it up a day because of championship weekend. But traffic got in the way, so we ended up getting to him on his approach shot, his second shot on the 12th hole. And if you've ever been to Torrey Pines, the south course, you know that the 12th hole is about as far as you can possibly be away from the entrances. So your boy had a good hike, a good frothy sweat going by that time, but ran into his brother Ryan. And so Ryan and Jake Knapp are two people I've known now for almost 15 years, because one of the first client groups at the original Juggernaut Train Systems gym in Laguna Hills, California, was the Orange Coast College, a junior college here just down the street from me, men's golf team. And on that men's golf team was Mr. Ryan Knapp, a freshman there, a guy that grew up here in Costa Mesa, played for Estancia High School, and I trained him when he was part of the OCC golf team. He then went on to play at UCI, and his younger brother Jake is one of the newest PGA Tour card holders, coming up from the Korn Ferry last year, having played at UCLA before. Helped him with a little bit of strength and conditioning before his time at UCLA. So we also play, are members of the same club here and get to play together from time to time. So head down there to see Jake, and his third PGA Tour start as a card-carrying PGA Tour member. And man, he was awesome. He played great. The highlights were certainly number 13, which is a 615-yard par 5. The tee box for the pros is just so far back. It's like a 265 carry just to get to the fairway from where they're hitting it. A solid 60 or 70 yards, farther back than mere mortals like you or I may be teeing off from. So after he hits, a 325-yard drive, 330-yard drive, and Jake can really pump it. He's, not swinging as hard as he absolutely can out there on tour. When he does that, he's getting up into mid-190s, like a 195 ball speed, which is just unbelievable if you're familiar with those numbers. But cruising a little bit more with his on-course drive, but gets it out there, 325, 330, and then has 293 yards into the green, pulls out his 2-wood, aka the mini driver, and becomes the only golfer on Saturday's final round to reach that green in 2 shots. Makes a birdie. He'd been kind of bouncing back between 5th, 6th, 3rd, so makes a birdie on 13. Goes and makes a 45-foot putt for birdie on 14. Great up and down on 15. The rough was super long there. Ryan told me that they had intended to cut the rough back a little bit on Monday, but there was a ton of rain here in Southern California on Sunday and Monday, so it was too muddy for the mowers to get through there, so they just got some really thick rough, like 6-inch long type of rough, the kind where you can barely even see your shoes when you're standing in it, let alone your ball. So he was in the left rough off the tee on 15, muscled it out as well as he could, but was still like 70 yards short of the green. Hit a great wedge shot to like 4 feet to save par. Made a par on 16, unfortunately made a bogey with a tough lip out on 17, and then finished with a birdie on 18 to finish tied for third. Again, in just his third PGA Tour start. He made the cut in his first start at the Sony Open out in Hawaii, then missed the cut despite making an albatross on a par 5 out there in the desert at the Amex. And now with this, earns himself a spot in the Waste Management, one of the elevated events in what is now his home of Scottsdale. So excited for him out there. And, it's nap time. So go follow him. That's Jake Knapp, not Jack Knapp, as the announcers were calling him some. And yes, he did used to be a bouncer at Country Club, a bar here in Costa Mesa. So, one of the more jacked, more athletic looking professional golfers. So that's always fun to see as well. And a local guy, good guy, and Knapp, Knapp. So cheers, Jake, on a great weekend there. So that brings us to Sunday. Championship Sunday. And Championship Sunday was kind of a story of teams who lived up to their identities. Some teams lived up to their identity and it paid off. Some teams lived up to their identity and it didn't pay off. Some teams didn't live up to their identity and didn't pay off. So first, looking at the AFC Championship, and full disclosure, for the first, up until about 2.5 minutes left in the first half, I was on the golf course, so just following along on Gamecast, and surprised to see the results there. And that was most of the scoring while we were on the golf course. And man, did I putt really badly. 20 putts for 9 holes, 3 putt, 4 holes. Yeah, it was rough, but started hitting the ball much better to finish par, bogey, par on usually the part of the front 9 that I play much worse. So enough about me though. So into the AFC Championship, watching back the first half after, and then the rest of the game in the second half was what really told the story, is where was the Ravens' run game? You're the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL, with, of course, a great running quarterback and a number of capable running backs, and you have 11 designed runs for the entire game. Totally unacceptable, for them to do that. Essentially, they abandoned their identity. They are a physical run team. Chiefs defense is good, but the Chiefs defense is particularly good against the pass. It was a bottom 5 rushing defense, and the Ravens they didn't even try to exploit that. So that's just, leaves, I think, anyone, Ravens fans, scratching their head for sure. Why not run the ball more? Yeah, you were down, but you weren't down by 20. You were down by 10 points. And, I talk about this more with the 49ers. When your best path to scoring the whole year, your offense, is about the run, then even when you get down, especially by not a overwhelming margin like the Ravens were, you can't abandon the run and feel like, oh, we have to score fast, so we better throw more. Well, that's all well and good if you actually score, but when you end up not scoring at all, it doesn't work out at all. So if your identity is running the ball, then run the ball, even when you're down, particularly a very manageable amount like 10 points. So that was pretty shocking. Watching the as we got into the clubhouse and started watching the game, I felt when the Chiefs stopped the Ravens and got the ball with like a minute 50 left in the first half, knowing that they were going to get the ball to start the second half as well, I was like, man, the Chiefs have the opportunity to lap the Ravens here, to score, get the ball and score again. I was like, and that's going to be a wrap right there. And it turned out that it was a wrap, even though that, those 2 back-to-back possessions only resulted in 3 points because the Ravens, again, abandoned their offensive identity. And the Chiefs defense played really, really well. And then, the Ravens' big mistakes cost them. The Zay Flowers fumble at the goal line Lamar's fumble, Lamar's interception. You could see in the second half, the moment seemed to be too big for them. Some of what I talked about on Saturday, with Lamar not having this great playoff track record, I think showed itself a lot. They looked undisciplined. They looked sloppy. They looked like, some of the penalties they were getting in the second half being overly aggressive, like Ray Lewis had given them, a really intense halftime speech, but failed to, talk about the discipline to execute that intensity with which he played. Or maybe they thought, he told them to play like it was 2000 and not 2024, so a lot more things got called. But the turnovers cost him. KC dominated time of possession with that. KC, dominated by running the ball effectively. And Patrick Mahomes he's just not going to make the mistake to give you a chance to get back in it. So it's like once they're up, forcing a turnover is such a long shot with him, and their defensive line, which had been so great, was largely neutralized by a very good Chiefs offensive line. So, I said 8 or 9 times out of 10, I thought the Ravens win that game. I thought it was going to be a Ravens win, but really closer than it was. I predicted 27-21 with the Chiefs having a shot to win it at the end and not doing that, but that'll teach you to bet against Patrick Mahomes. So on to the NFC Championship. Also, full disclosure here, I was pretty hammered during the NFC Championship game, and a lot of that came from the stress that the first half was causing me. The multiple WTF moments going on in the first half as the Lions' offensive line dominated the 49ers defense, gashing them in the run game. They were averaging like 8 or 9 yards a carry in the first half. Just unbelievable. A lack of effort and pursuit, especially on the Jameson Williams touchdown run, the Gibbs touchdown run. Like the way that Chase Young was loafing after Jamar Gibbs on that touchdown run, like completely unacceptable. That's the kind of thing they're really missing Cleveland Farrell there in his high effort and ability against the run. But then as halftime came, your boy feeling dejected. We were at the club watching this game with a lot of our friends, their kids who I coach on our flag football team, the Costa Mesa first and second grade 49ers. So I was getting the kids hyped with, I say bang bang, you say Niner gang chant, and my little 7-year-olds cheering as loudly as possible. But I was sulking. Some people accuse me of crying. That is inaccurate. But I was sulking a lot during the first half, sitting off to myself, confused, stressed of what I was watching unfold. But then halftime happened. And out in the second half, despite being down significantly, the 49ers stuck to their identity. When they were down 24-7 at halftime, it would have been very easy, and I expected them to come out and just try and throw the ball. And my friend Chris, who's a diehard 49ers fan, he and I, in our highly inebriated, very sad, frustrated states, kept saying, like, they got to keep running it, run the offense, run the offense. And that was my frustration last week against the Packers so much as Brock was in, doing a lot of straight drop back, and they, struggled to adjust once Debo went out of the game. They didn't run the Shanahan offense, which has been so effective with so many different quarterbacks. But this game, they stayed with their identity. They got Debo going in the run and the pass game. They, stayed leaning and working with Christian McCaffrey and chipped away at it. And they stuck to their identity. And the Lions, thankfully for the 49ers, stuck to their identity too. Both the good new Lions, their identity of going for it on fourth down all the time, which ultimately, was a cost them with the misses and not taking the field goals and taking the points, assuming they would have made those field goals, which is not 100% assumption. Their kicker is not very good, but also the momentum shifts that created, leading to the Brandon Ayuk, the immaculate deflection to Brandon Ayuk, which you say it's lucky? Sure. You play a sport with a weird shaped ball and it bounces weird. That's how it goes. Sometimes it works for you, sometimes it works against you. And there it worked for him. And, as they just chipped away and they didn't seem panicked, they didn't seem overwhelmed, even though their fans like me, were overwhelmed in these moments. And I think it's really a testament to the Niners football character being so incredibly high. And that is why, I love the 49ers football team, of the guys that I've met and gotten to interact with on that team, why I love those guys. You see it with the coaches. It's just such a well-run organization from top down. And they put together a team, as Mr. Pat McAfee would say, of dogs. And they're all over the place. Trent Williams, Kittle, Juszczyk, McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, all just high football character guys, hard workers, super physical players. And it's rare. Like think about these teams out there that they have all of their best players are all these super physical, hard-working guys. Then, on the defense, even though the defense is having issues, Fred and Dre, Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, like high character guys, Shavarius Ward, physical, hard-nosed players, did not shrink from the moment. They as much in the first half as it looked like, especially on that Jahmyr Gibbs run, like they're giving up. Defense came out, played so much better in the second half, got stops when we needed them, and turned it all around. And then Mr. Brock Purdy, Mr. Not So Irrelevant Anymore. Some people call him Big Cock Brock. I can't speak to that. But dude was just making plays. He made great plays. The interception to Malcolm Rodriguez, which Marissa was rooting for the Lions right there, defying me, rooting for the Lions, my enemy at this moment. Even though I don't dislike the Lions, you can't dislike the Lions. But Malcolm Rodriguez, her favorite player, watch him on Hard Knocks, Viva la Raza and all of that. So he makes that interception, and now I'm like, oh my God, this is just, it's Lions are a team of destiny, and Marissa's going to be talking nonstop shit to me about Rodriguez's interception. But Brock, unbothered, not rattled, came out, just kept doing his thing. His runs, incredible. 2 21-yard runs. He didn't have a running play over 20 yards the rest of the year. He has 2 in the huge moments in that game. He's, sneaky athletic. You've heard this stuff about Brock having like almost as fast a 10-yard split as Lamar Jackson. I don't know if that is strictly true, but, he's quick. He's very powerfully built in the lower body. Like you see him in person, he's got big legs, a big ass, physical guy. The escape, where he sort of ducked out of those ones, and it was like, how did he get out of that? And then he moves in the pocket and hits Christian Juszczyk's husband on the sideline for that toe tap catch. My boy Dustin, the 49ers head strength coach, and one of the angles is right behind Juice, and you can see him make the catch, and Dustin's looking behind like, just this look of shock and amazement. It's a great video. So huge congratulations to the 49ers. Made me proud to be a 49ers fan last night with the way, they just battled. They stayed true to their identity, physical football, running the ball, all the misdirection stuff, the cleverness on offense. Love to see it. So my first thoughts on the Super Bowl, Chiefs offensive line is a big advantage. They were very good. The story of the game for the Lions in the first half was their offensive line dominating the 49ers defensive line with all those big names on it. Chiefs offensive line is very comparable. Joe Thuney was out against the Ravens, and they still ran the ball well against a great defense. He's going to be back. I'm sure Creed Humphrey's not going to have those low snaps again. So the 49ers D-line has to step up. Chase Young has to play with greater effort. We have to set the edge in the run better. Kelsey, not quite the blocker that like Laporta is on setting the edge on some of those things, but whether it's scheme, whether it's personnel, whether it's effort, we have to play better against the run. The Chiefs showed that they'll just run the air out of the ball like they did against the Ravens, and you don't get a chance to have the ball and try and come back on them. So we got to start fast. We can't, it can't be another comeback. That's not going to work against the Chiefs. The D-line has to step up. They have to put pressure on Mahomes, which he hasn't been sacked the entire postseason. So that's a tall order. Weapons advantage, always to the 49ers. Snead is good. McDuffie is good. Nick Bolton and stuff, athletic linebackers, but still the advantage to Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey, Juszczyk. So many weapons. I mean, to have a fullback like Kyle Juszczyk, an offensive weapon, as Kyle called him to John Lynch when they signed him initially from the Ravens. Not a fullback, an offensive weapon. A fullback like, toe tap catch on the sideline like that, just unbelievable. So they got to be multiple in, using those weapons in all the creative ways that they do. Getting Debo involved in the run game, the screen game, motion McCaffrey out of the backfield, get Debo in the backfield, all the window dressing, eye candy going on before the play. I was surprised to see the 49ers be a favorite, open at a 2.5 point favorite. I think down to a 1 point betting favorite now. Maybe it ends up as a pick 'em. I'm going to be picking with my heart and my head when it comes to that. But I know, going into it, I would have thought I'd rather play the Chiefs than the Ravens. But after watching the Chiefs in that game and watching the Ravens in that game, maybe would have rather played the Ravens. But I'm excited for the 49ers to be back in the Super Bowl. A Super Bowl that features the two best NFL franchises, certainly of the last half decade. The 49ers now are in their second Super Bowl, 4 conference championship games. The Chiefs are in the conference championship every year and are, now going to be playing in their 4th Super Bowl in 5 years. So remarkable run, a great weekend of football. Going to talk more, previewing the game. Hopefully get, fingers crossed for a notable 49ers guest to join me in the next week and a half as we lead up to the Super Bowl. And, it's just the most fun time of year. So please subscribe to the podcast. Tell your friends. Beers with Chad, iTunes, Spotify, all that good stuff. And, let me know down in the comments on Instagram, Beers with Chad Instagram, what you want to hear me talk about. If you got questions, training questions, life questions, whatever it is. Cheers to you fine folks. Thank you very much.